So for task 3, you're going to be creating a page that's similar to what we have in the lecture notes and similar to what we have in the book. This is an example of what your page is going to look like. Okay, so you'll notice I've got 2 boxes here, one with the data I just keyed in, and then the other one was already filled in. And this is a responsive page. So if I make this smaller, you can see how that works. Okay. The topic of your page can be whatever you want. It does not have to be a pet shop. It can be anything. So what you're going to have to do is create a CSS page, and you're going to have to put that in a CSS folder. You're going to have a JavaScript file that is external. So you're going to name it with JS at the end, and I called it multiple objects, and you're going to put that into a JS folder. So you're going to have a lesson 2 folder. Inside the lesson 2 folder, you're going to have a CSS folder. You're going to have a JS folder. The CSS can pretty much be whatever you want. I made mine Flexbox, which is why it's responsive. And you can kind of take a look here if you want to see how I did it. For the multiple objects, so I have a function called pet, and when this function is called, it is being passed 4 pieces of information. And when I'm in this function, whatever is passed in that first position before the first comma, I'm going to call name. Whatever is passed after the first comma, I'm calling breed. Whatever gets passed after the second comma, I'm calling price. Whatever gets passed after that third and final comma, I'm calling discount. And I am storing name into this dot name, breed in this dot breed, price in this dot price, discount in this dot discount. I am creating an object, and name, breed, price, and discount are the properties or the features of my object. This is just referring to the object itself that I'm creating features for. I'm creating a function inside here that I am going to call cost. So this is a method. You create a function inside where you're creating a class. You now have a method. And so basically all this is doing is it's taking the price and subtracting out the discount, and then it's going to return that value. I also have a message, and this is also a method because it's inside the function where I'm creating my class. And so this is just displaying a little message for the discount percent. Okay, so that's really all it's doing. Okay, and I've got this at the top. And then for the first pet, I'm prompting the user to enter data, and you saw that. Okay, and once I get the 4 pieces of data, then I am basically creating a new object. I'm calling pet, which is up here. I've got the new qualifier, so it's a new object, and I'm passing the data that was keyed in. So N is in the first position, that is for name. I've got B in the second position for breed, P for price, D for discount. Okay, and that entire object that I created is in first pet. So first pet is interactive. The second one is not. here I'm creating an object, and instead of getting data from the user, I am just keying it in. So for name, I've got it in double quotes, same with poodle, because it's text. And then for the price and the discount, I just hard-coded numbers. So second pet is all hard-coded, it was not interactive. Then I am using the date function, new date, storing that in today. And then if I want to get a week from today, I have to actually call new date again, using today and get time. I am then calculating a week from now, and that's what all of this is doing. 7 days, 24 hours in a day, 60 minutes in an hour, 60 seconds, and then we get into milliseconds. But basically that calculation is going to add a week, okay? So I'm storing it in something called week from today. Then at this point, I've got both of my objects. I figured out what a week from today is. And now I want to update my HTML. And there's lots of different ways to do it. And so we're going to start with inner HTML. And as the course progresses, I will show you other methods. So what we're doing is we're targeting different IDs, and we're changing the HTML that's displayed. So we've got pet name 1, pet breed 1, retail 1, discount 1, total 1, discount 1. So let's go over here. That corresponds to the IDs that I have right here. And you'll notice I threw a span in here. So we are going to be targeting in between the opening and closing span. That is where it's going to be adding our text and updating the HTML. So I'm prefixing the different properties with the object. So I've got first pet as my object, dot name. That gives me access to, whatever was stored here. First pet's my object. Whatever we had set up here gives me access to that. First pet dot breed is going to give me access to whatever they entered here. Price and discount kind of works the same. First pet dot cost is calling this little method where it is going to calculate the cost, which is the price minus the discount. What it's returning is this lovely $, and then whatever was calculated for the total cost. First pet dot message calls this little method, and what it's going to return is the discount percent, which basically is a message. So you received A. We are going to take the discount divided by the price, multiply that by 100. That gives us a percentage, and then we're going to say percent discount. Okay, and that little message gets displayed where discount 1 is located. Okay, then we're going to update the values in this section. So we got pet name 2, pet breed 2, et cetera, okay, all the way down to discount 2. Okay, and so here we are using the second pet object, and we are updating the values. Then at the bottom, we are going to display a week from today. So whatever this little calculation did to move us forward a week, okay, with all of this crazy arithmetic, that is what is going to display where we have the date ID. Let's go over here. Here's the date ID. It's going to display right here. So prices are good through. We're getting a date that is a week from today. Okay, so this is what the code is doing, and you are going to need to do something similar. So now that I explained the code, we're going to take another look at these requirements, okay? So you need the multiple object JS file in a JS folder. You need some CSS in a CSS folder, and you need your HTML file. So you want a function that can generate an object. Has to have at least 3 properties, and it should have at least one method. The example that I just showed you had 2 methods, and it had 4 properties. You don't have to have all of that, okay? You're going to decide on the type of object that you want to create. I did pets. You can do whatever you want. We are not using document or write line to update your HTML because the JavaScript is in a different file. Write line does not work if your JavaScript is in a different file, okay? So this is basically the example that I just showed you, how I did it. You need to create 2 objects using the function. So you can either manually create the objects or you can allow the user to enter data. The example that I just showed you does both, but if you prefer to use method 2 and create the 2 objects that way, that's okay. If you want to use method 1 to create the 2 objects, that's okay too. Totally up to you. You need to use some type of date object and a date method. This is what I did, okay, but you can choose to do something different, you know, if you would prefer to do something else with dates. And then our last little step is going to be to update the data in your HTML, and we're using inner HTML for that. And we just kind of walk through how all of that looks and how it works. When you do your HTML page, make sure you have IDs in here because you do need to target them. And you will actually be formatting them with CSS and targeting the IDs so you can update with inner HTML in your JavaScript. As far as your HTML goes, you should have some kind of background image. Does not matter to me what you use, but you should have some styling for like a header and the footer and the body. You can take a look at what I did for CSS. Okay? And if you want to do something similar, that's fine. If you want to do something completely different, that's fine too. Totally up to you. And then what you're going to want to do is save your changes, test it offline, make sure everything works. And then once it does, you can transfer it to the internet. Now, what happens if everything doesn't work? So if it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So let's say you do all of this and you get through all of this and it doesn't display like this. Press F12. If you have an issue, it should display over here under console. I don't have an error, so that's why we don't see it, but that tends to be where errors are displayed. And typically you can click the error and it will show you in your code where the problem is. Okay, make sure if you run into problems or have questions that you ask and I will help.